All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our South Carolina Ag Disruptors webinar. We want to thank you for joining in with us this month. I'm Kevin Burkett with the Clemson Extension Agribusiness team, and also joined by my co-host Scott Mickey for the program today. And again, our monthly webinar focuses on topics that could have a disruptive impact on the state's farms and agribusinesses in the state. So each month we touch on topics that are upcoming or could be of interest to the producers in the state, and again, could have some kind of disruptive effect. So we like to have a wide variety of speakers, and sometimes in extension and agribusiness, but sometimes out of extension as well, just throughout the state of things that may be happening. So if you'd like to check out any of our past webinars, you can do that through our YouTube channel, and we have our past playlist, which this program will be recorded and sent there as well. And then we try to make an announcement about upcoming speakers and topics as well. We also like to get feedback of things that you guys might like to hear about and things that you know about that are of interest in the state as well. So today we are joined by Kendall Kirk of the Precision Ag program with Clemson. And Kendall is going to touch on some ag technologies, maybe some softwares and some calculators and different things that they've worked on, but maybe some things that are upcoming that could be disruptive as well. We kind of left it open-ended as far as what Kendall preferred to touch on. So he had spoken recently at the Executive Farm Management Program and did a very good job. So we wanted to invite him on today to speak about some of that with us on the webinar. So with that, I think, Kendall, you should have co-host capabilities and the ability to share your screen and video. So you're welcome to start anytime.
Thanks, Kevin. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
All right, let's see if I can get the screen share to the right video. Let's see. How's that? You got a slide, not the presenter view?
Yep, looks good.
All right, good. Well, thanks, Kevin, and thanks everybody else for joining. Thank you for inviting me to be included here. Kevin, you should always be careful when you invite me to do anything open-ended and and don't give me the specific bullets that I need to hit. So hopefully these guys told me I've got 45 minutes to say what I'm going to say, and hopefully I can get done sooner than that. But I seem to always try to pack too much in. So I took a look at a handful of different technologies. I did trim the list way down from what I was going to go over. And as part of the executive farm management discussion, the presentation there, I didn't get halfway through that one. So I intentionally eliminated some things that I tried to say there, just to kind of cut to the chase in this one. So the plan here, if I can get it on the right slide, there we go. The plan here is to outline a handful, and I narrowed it down to 4, some specific and one fairly broad topic of ag tech developments that I believe will change the way we do things in agriculture in South Carolina and nationwide for that matter. And then I'm going to try to wrap up with kind of what do I see the university's role as being within this ag tech revolution, or the tech revolution that we're going through in agriculture, digital revolution, you may have heard it referred to as, and then what are Clemson's priorities within that. So that's the general outline. Hopefully I'll make it through the whole thing. We'll begin with what are some current and future ag tech developments. Some of these are kind of the viral technology, so things that I'm sure you've heard about, things I'm sure you know about in some degree. And then some of them may be, or at least one of them anyway, maybe something that you weren't aware of or didn't really know how it was going to get implemented. And some of it, we're still learning how these things are going to be implemented. So I think to talk about ag technologies and ag technologies that could foreseeably be disruptors or change the way we do things in ag, and to ignore spray drones, I think we'd be remiss in doing so. I don't think in the near term that we'll see spray drones in South Carolina or elsewhere, for that matter, replacing our ground rigs. I'm not even sure in the long term if that will ever, if that'll ever be a reality. Where we stand right now, though, I think is the important thing to focus on and talk about. There are special regulations to be certified to fly a spray drone. So beyond your typical pesticide applicators licensure, you have to have aerial application in South Carolina. That's a state by state kind of how that licensure is controlled. And then the FAA requires that you not only have a drone pilot license, which is FAA Part 107, but you also have to have a FAA Part 137 license. Now, the big deal with that is they're relatively challenging to get, and a lot of folks end up having to go through kind of a third-party service to obtain that FAA 137, and the cost to do that is usually about $25,000. That's a cost per entity is generally, I think, how it's being interpreted right now, and not a cost per individual. So in other words, every individual at a company doesn't need to have that licensure, but they all do need to have the 107 licensure, which is relatively easy to get. The spray drones that we have, I think a lot of what we're seeing is the limitations are going to be largely not a function of the technology that's able to be incorporated in those spray drones, but instead a lot of the limitation and application is going to be centered around what are the regulations, and have the regulations caught up with the technology. An example of that, we've already seen in imaging drones, some of the smaller drones, sub 55-pound drones that anybody with the FAA 107 can fly. The easy button on that really isn't in place, which is to have fully autonomous systems. We do have those. We have, there are companies out there that have systems that can go fly a flight plan or a portion of a flight plan. They can come back home to a dock, charge, and then go continue flying the flight plan. And that flight plan might take 5 to 7 days to complete, and it starts over again. So you can imagine an imaging drone that can go through and get analytics and insights for an entire farm operation in a week's time period. Satellite imagery is also improving, and similar outcomes can be achieved with imaging from satellites. However, the resolution's lower. So there's a little bit of a difference when we look at the two. The problem with that system I just described, where you've got a home base where the drone can come back to, and then it can go off and take off and continue its flight plan. Our current regulations for flying drones, and I don't know in that specific case, but I do know our current regulations for the FAA 107 licensure, you have to be within sight of the drone. The pilot, that is, has to be within sight of the drone to be able to fly the drone. So even though we've got a system that can be fully automated, the pilot would have to be there watching it the whole time as the rules are currently written. Now, again, I don't know if there are special exceptions or exemptions in some cases, but that's just an example of where the regulations need to catch up for this to be a really practical thing that we could apply in an agricultural setting. Farmers don't necessarily have the time, or I'll say don't have the time to fly all of their acreage, even if it's an automated flight plan, between battery changes and then the back end analytics of the imagery. All of that's got to be connected and automated, I think, for it to really take off. With spray drones, we can use them, and the laws have been updated so that we can use them. Within that, though, there's still some things that we've got to figure out. For instance, when we run a ground rig, most of our pesticide labels they specify droplet sizes, or they specify pressures and spray tips that we can use to achieve those droplet sizes to stay within the label. What we see on spray drones is that droplet sizes are entirely different than what we used to see. And a lot of spray drones now, or some of the newer spray drones that we're seeing, they don't even have spray tips anymore. Instead, they've got atomizers that basically spin at a really high speed. And as they spin at that high speed, they atomize the liquid. And all of that goes into the downwash of the propellers. So regardless of what the label says about droplet size and whether or not we can stay within label on droplet size, well, I guess to another point there, a lot of our pesticides or our products that we would like to apply with the agricultural spray drone, a lot of them are not labeled for aerial application, and they need to be able to use a spray drone. But regardless, when we see that product going into the downwash of propellers on a quadcopter, for instance, that downwash pushes the product into the canopy. And that's something that really in research, we've not evaluated what is the efficacy of this product if we do it this way with a drone versus the way we spray it on with a ground rig or otherwise versus injecting it into a center pivot system. So I believe what we'll see is different rates will be more or less effective than what we formerly saw. So long story short, we've got a lot to learn with these. I think the future in South Carolina of agricultural spray drones largely is going to be the near future, I should say. I think it's largely going to be spray drones as a service. We have many farmers now that I'm aware of that have spray drones. Oftentimes they'll operate under the license of the group they purchased the drone from. That's a little unclear as to what the regulations say about that, but that's how some of them are operating currently. And I'm checking the chat. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I'm not missing one. Okay. The service I think that we'll see is to fulfill a niche market. It will be where there are instances where conventional crop dusting can't do the job, or there's pockets where conventional crop dusting can't reach, or otherwise spot spraying, I think will be a common thing that we'll see for an application of agricultural spray drones. And that kind of brings back the imaging drones. Oftentimes, we're going to have some way to build that prescription for the spot spray. And I think some of the new technology developments will support building those prescription maps for spot spraying itself. So this is one that I think a lot of y'all have probably heard about, John Deere See and Spray. And the reason I bring it up here, you know, it's just one company, one manufacturer, one technology. Although I think it represents something that we might begin to see across many more machinery applications. What we're seeing here is a per acre fee on use of this technology. We've seen that in some other ag technologies, but generally speaking, it's not been something that we've seen. I think you can probably see my cursor. This is a camera. They've got cameras positioned along a spray boom about once every 3 feet. And those cameras are used to detect weeds. There's 2 different packages currently. Let's see, here's another camera right here to kind of give you a perspective on how far down the boom each camera is placed. There's 10 CPUs on the machine that process the imagery on the go from these cameras. You can spray at about 12 miles an hour for the See and Spray Select technology. The 2 packages, See and Spray Select is for spraying fallow ground. In other words, disc ground that you're kind of just spot spraying. When you see a weed, you spray it. And in fact, if you see anything green, you spray it on the fallow ground application, the See and Spray Select. The other package is called See and Spray Ultimate, and See and Spray Ultimate is for in-season spraying. The technology is available currently, to my knowledge, on corn, cotton, and soybeans, as long as they're all above 30-inch row spacing. And so essentially here, the camera is detecting where the row middle is, as opposed to the row center where the plants are, are placed. And then when it sees weeds, and it doesn't know if it's a weed or not, it doesn't detect currently, I'm sure they're working on that. It doesn't detect what the weed species is. It sees that here's a green plant in a place where it should not be. And so it will turn on a spray nozzle accordingly, with the look ahead on the camera combined with processing speed and the positioning of the boom at the time that it's over that plant, and basically just spray that plant. That's the goal anyway. And I think it does a fairly good job of it. I've not seen one of these in operation. I don't know that we've got one in operation in South Carolina. I'm not aware of one if we do. Basically, let's see, I've got some notes here, but I'm going to skip through some of these looking at the clock. The objective here is reduce herbicide use, right? If you're not blanket or uniform spraying Roundup or whatever your product is across the entire field, and you're only applying it in those localized areas where it needs to be applied, then you can use much less product. And you can also use higher rates, so long as the label supports higher rates, while still using much less product. The advantage to that is that we can, maybe, I won't say start to reverse, but start to slow down some of what we see in herbicide resistance among some of the weed species that we have, which is becoming a kind of a growing issue that we look at. The technology itself was not developed by Deere. It was developed by a company called Blue River Technology, and then Deere acquired them in 2017. I believe it was just last year or the year before that we really started to see these things largely taking off in the market. The two options, See and Spray Select, remember, is the one for spraying fallow ground. See and Spray Select generally is $130,000 add-on to the cost of the sprayer itself. So you buy the sprayer, and then in addition to that, you pay another $130,000 to have the ability to use this technology. Then to use the technology, it's another $1 an acre, is my understanding, on top of that. So over the lifetime of the equipment, adding on this technology to your sprayer is going to cost, and this is assuming a 80,000 acre equipment life, that equates to about $2.50 an acre over the life of the equipment. So is it a good deal for the farmers? I think in many cases, yes. Is it different, though, from what we have previously seen in machinery and field machinery operations? Absolutely. Because now, not only do I own the technology and be able to use the technology on my farm, but I pay on a per acre use of the technology instead of any other technologies that we've had in the past. As close as we've gotten to this in the ag tech space has been, I'd say, RTK subscriptions for auto steering. So that's where most of our tractors here at Edisto Rec are equipped with auto steering technology, and most peanut farmers in South Carolina, I won't say most, I don't know how many, but many peanut farmers in South Carolina adopt it, as well as other farmers. That's basically where you make an AB line and the tractor steers on the AB line. The operator generally still turns on the end of the row, but when you're in a row or in a pass, it steers for you and keeps you on a line or parallel to that line throughout the field. What we see in that technology, the ability to do it well, you need RTK corrections. That's real-time kinematic. It gets us sub-inch accuracy and repeatable sub-inch accuracy. To get an RTK correction, or the reason why we need it, is the satellites aren't perfect. If we calculate our position based on GPS satellites, we're always a little bit off. So the RTK correction is basically a service that's generally radio transmitted to the tractor. And it's a service that it says, okay, you think you're here, but you need to correct your latitude by this much and correct your longitude by that much. I'm oversimplifying what it does, but more or less that's what RTK technology is and why we need it. It's the closest that I can think of to what we see in See and Spray, because with RTK technology, we see the need to pay an annual subscription. Generally, that's going to be dealer specific. So this is not like a corporate thing with a lot of these companies. And I don't know with every company how they handle it specifically. But usually what we see is the need to pay $1,000 per year in our area to have the RTK subscription on a piece of machinery. You can have your own base station to produce your own corrections. That's what we do here at Edisto Rec. But if you do have that, you've got a lot more in capital investment. So there's a lot of factors to decide there. Other ag technologies that have worked on kind of a subscription service, generally we haven't seen a per acre basis like we see with See and Spray. We haven't seen a per acre or really even a per year basis on most of them. Most of them have a lifetime unlock or a lifetime activation that's tied to the hardware you activate it on. So usually it's not tied to an individual or tied to an account holder. Usually instead, it's tied to a display or a computer that lives in the tractor. If you sell that display or that computer, that unlock goes with it, is generally how these things work. So for section control, variable rate application, multi-product control, there's a kind of a long list of different things that the computers that farmers purchase will do or have the capability to do, but you got to pay an extra fee to get it. So it's a software fee, and usually it's a one-time software fee, not a software as a service fee. And I'm not even sure if that's really what we're looking at with See and Spray. I like to refer to it as a machinery as a service fee. But it is certainly to help support software updates and that type of thing. So I think it's a necessary cost for the machinery companies, but it's something that's going to change how we do business. I also think it's a good technology. I think it's something that's going to help us to be better stewards of the land. It's going to help our farmers to be more profitable. However, it's going to widen the gap between our small acreage farmers and large acreage farmers in terms of profitability. And that's often what we see in any ag technologies for field crop management. Oftentimes these technologies, they pay off by the acre, right? So a technology that takes 10,000 acres to pay off, that's, you know, the payoff period or return on investment. For a large farmer, they might pay it off in 2 years. For a small farmer, they may never pay it off, right? Not in the lifetime of the technology itself. So these are things we need to think about. Oftentimes, I think that's an important university role within what we do, is to make sure that we're looking out for the small farmer and learning ways that we can help the small farmer to take advantage of technologies when there's not really a cost-effective solution offered by industry for them. My question with this technology, machinery as a service type technologies, what's next? Are we going to have planters or harvesters that have optimization of settings as you go through the field, but you pay for that on a per acre basis of how often you use it? Spreaders and sprayers with record keeping, automated in-cab, weather driven controls or notifications. We kind of have some of that, but generally not offered by the machinery companies themselves. So I think just something to think about on what may be down the road. I threw this one in there. It's something I'm really interested in, and I'm kind of trying to follow this company fairly closely. It's I believe a California company. Nitricity is the name of it. the name from nitrogen and electricity. Essentially, what this company is doing is they're producing fertilizer, nitrogen-based fertilizers, and they're pulling it from the air. All right. The way that they do that, they use air, water, and solar power to get the job done. Everything is housed in a shipping container, so the entire nitricity solution is inside the shipping container, and then what's produced goes into on-site storage tanks. Now, the importance of this in this technology itself, the ability to pull nitrogen from the air and convert it to nitric acid using electricity it's a different way of doing a different way of producing nitrogen fertilizer than what we typically use. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer mostly today follows the Haber-Bosch process. And I forget, I meant to put the numbers in here for what percentage of human protein is a product of the Haber-Bosch product. It's a really large number. Essentially, without the process, there's many that say that we wouldn't be able to feed the world if it weren't for that Haber-Bosch process. However, with nitricity and the way that they do what they do, it provides an opportunity to decentralize the fertilizer market. The Haber-Bosch process, usually you got these, and you have to have, from an economic standpoint, these large centralized production facilities, and then the nitrogen produced, the nitrogen fertilizer produced there has to be delivered from there out to the recipients, to the farmers in various locations or otherwise distribution networks that they go into. The process for nitricity also, they highlight decarbonization of nitrogen fertilizer production. So within the Haber-Bosch process, natural gas is used and consumed to generate the large amount of energy required to make the nitrogen fertilizer. So a large amount of CO2 is released into the atmosphere. I believe that process produces more CO2 than any other human-driven process we have. So something to improve that as we talk about, you know, carbon in the atmosphere and decarbonization of all of our processes. I think nitricity may be onto something in that way too, although I don't know the economics behind nitricity and whether or not it will be a meaningful reality. One system, this container that you see here in the picture, that system can produce enough nitrogen in a year to serve 50 to 100,000 acres of farmland, according to Nitricity's claims. And so what we'll see here, and I like to think of it, you all know about Twice the Ice, right? That place you go to and you pop $1.50 into it and out pops a bag of ice. I think we may see something like that with nitricity. I don't know that that's their vision or their model, but I really think it can make a big difference in how we manage fertilizer on farms. Whether or not it's in South Carolina anytime soon, I don't know, but something that I think is interesting to think about. And then the big can of worms, AI. So they're going to revolutionize the way that we do business anywhere, period, not just agriculture. I think within this, we need to be thinking about, first of all, we need to be teaching it in school. We need to be teaching it as a tool. We don't need to be discouraging students from using it. I've got a 11-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I haven't exactly sat down with them and showed them how to use ChatGPT to their benefit. But I do believe that it's important that they understand that it can be a valuable tool. I use it not on I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but occasionally to help get prompts for bullet points on slides. I don't necessarily trust everything it gives me without fact checking it. And I guess I'm referring here to ChatGPT. There's many other AI tools. Most of these are based on some sort of machine learning. More or less, there's computational models that can evolve with time as they're presented with new data. And they're not rigid models like we traditionally think about in statistical regression models, for instance. Instead, they're a little bit more flexible in their pattern-based models. So that's where the term learning, that's basically what it's learning. It's learning patterns in the data, learning structures in the data, and then applying those to unknown data sets to try to produce similar results. There's two forms. There's supervised learning and unsupervised learning. It's just a different way of it's do you feed it a data set that's a labeled data set or not? That's basically the difference in those. The two that you are likely largely familiar with, I would think, ChatGPT. It's a language learning model. And I'm going to read, I normally don't try to read when I'm doing a presentation, but I am going to read a definition here. ChatGPT is a machine learning language model that is capable of generating human-like responses to a wide range of questions and topics. It is designed to learn from large amounts of text data and use that knowledge to provide informative and engaging answers to user inquiries. So the reason I read it is because I asked ChatGPT to define itself. I said, ChatGPT, how do you define ChatGPT? And that was the definition it gave me. Basically, it's built on unsupervised learning. It's built on a large data set, I think largely acquired from the internet. It does not take the information that we give it and apply it to change its model, or at least currently, as I understand, that's not the way that it functions. And I'm referring here to ChatGPT 3. I'm not as familiar with GPT-4. Another product by the same company, just to kind of give another picture, these are generative AIs. So not all AI has to be generative. Generative, in other words, it's generating something based on what we ask it for. There's other AI that instead, arguably, I guess it could be termed generative, but it's interpretive, right? It's looking at a picture and it's telling you what it sees in that picture. I think largely in the ag space, we'll see some of that with AI, but I think some of this generative AI is going to be important in agriculture. And I think it's something important for extension to think about when we look at our extension guides, our peanut production handbook, our cotton production guide, all of these things that we've provided for farmers based on science-backed recommendations. And that's been the stronghold of the land grant system between extension and research, is that we do have science-based recommendations that we provide to the farmers. I think it will be important for AI that is developed specifically for farmers to be trained with science-backed recommendations or otherwise science-backed data sets, so that the responses that they get from particular questions are at least to some degree back. There are some AI tools out there as well now that that give you citations for where information comes from when it provides you with information. I think those will be important, and I think it's going to be important for us to inform our farmers that, you know, if you have a tool that gives you a recommendation, you should be able to understand the validity or how much confidence you should put in that recommendation. Another technology, another generative technology, a text-to-image technology, is DALL-E. I'm sure y'all have probably, if you're familiar with ChatGPT, you're probably familiar with DALL-E, both from OpenAI, and I'm not trying to highlight OpenAI here. They're just kind of the two most popular ones out there right now. So I figured they were good for the introduction here. I've got a quick video on DALL-E. I don't know, looking at the clock, I might bypass the video. I'll try to find y'all a link to it, and maybe Kevin, I'll get it back out through you. But the video itself, we'll watch a minute of it.
Didn't think so. DALL-E 2 is a new AI system from OpenAI that can take simple text descriptions like a koala dunking a basketball and turn them into photorealistic images that have never existed before. DALL-E 2 can also realistically edit and retouch photos. Based on a simple natural language description, it can fill in or replace part of an image with AI-generated imagery that blends seamlessly with the original. It's called in-painting. In January 2021, OpenAI
All right, I'm going to try to skip to a section. I don't want to watch the whole video. I was going to, but I'm talking too slow. All right, so there's something here. This is worthwhile. All right, let's start here.
Systems see and understand our world. This is a critical part of developing AI that's useful and safe. The technology is constantly evolving, and DALL-E 2 has limitations. If it's taught with images that are incorrectly labeled, like a plane labeled car, and a user tries to generate a car, DALL-E may create a plane. It's like talking to a person who learned the wrong word for something. DALL-E can also be limited by gaps in its training. If you type baboon and DALL-E has learned what a baboon is through images and accurate labels, it will generate a lot of great baboons. But if you type howler monkey and it hasn't learned what a howler monkey is, DALL-E will give you its best idea of what it thinks it could be.
So this is the example I wanted to show. I think it's important to recognize within any of these AI applications, they have a data set that they get trained on, and then they take that data set and they do the best they can. These models do the best they can to provide you with a response based on what you're asking for. It didn't know what a howler monkey was in this case because it hadn't been trained with a howler monkey in this example that she's providing. So it gives you the best thing it can come up with. And that's the problem with AI. It can't tell you, or generally, maybe we get better with it and it does. But generally, it can't tell you the level of confidence in the response it gives you. All it knows is this is the best response I can give you based on all the information that I have. It doesn't know what a howler monkey is, right? It only knows what it knows. I don't know. That's, I think, important to think about, because the implication of that to a farmer is, imagine we have an AI technology that can provide a recommendation. I can go to this tool, this chatbot, for instance, and say, you know, what do I do about stink bugs in cotton at 8 weeks, and I'm observing this much damage or this many in the sweep net or whatever. You know, I've got some information that I feed it, and I'm asking for a recommendation on what to do about it. I think AI can be a great tool to help provide those recommendations. However, the tool is going to give that farmer an answer one way or another. It's going to say, even if it doesn't know what to do in that situation. Hopefully we improve these things and have the chatbots ask questions back to fill in the blanks. In other words, to know what it doesn't know to some degree. And then hopefully as well, we'll start to see opportunities, and I don't know if this will be industry or university driven, but opportunities for universities and extension especially to intentionally populate and train these models, or provide the data with which these models are trained. That data being the production guides and the resources that traditionally ride around in the back seat of a pickup truck or on the dashboard in the form of a handbook. AI and ag specifically, I think we'll see a lot of decision analysis tools that our farmers, and we already do see them, decision analysis tools that our farmers adopt, where they're using satellite imagery to give them insights on their crop health maps. These are forms of AI. There's services out there, though, that I think we need to be careful about. There's one service that I saw the other day that it can give you a variable rate phosphorus map based on a 3-year-old satellite image of your field. Okay, well, that's just not realistic. It's not something that we have the capability of doing. So I think we need to be careful to help inform our farmers. What are the things we can do? If I have a nitrogen image from today of a hay field, can I use that to make a protein map or otherwise make a variable rate nitrogen prescription? Yes, I think we can do that. So there are some nutrient informed decisions we can do with satellite imagery, but some that we cannot. So I think extension especially will continue to play a role in helping to inform the farmers of what we can do. And then beyond that, I think our traditional university research will continue to be important to feed these models, to make the models informed and to make the models as best they can. I think crop selection, crop enterprise, decisions on what crop do I put in this field this year. I think we're already seeing AI do that, where it's integrating data from markets and weather and labor supply and input costs and everything that a farmer has to consider that they may just intrinsically consider otherwise, and help them to make a more informed decision. I don't think the AI is always going to get it right, and I don't think it always has to get it right. Frankly, the farmer doesn't always get it right, and they can't, because we don't know what's to come in any given crop season. Weather forecasting is only as good as it is, and we all know that if the weatherman tells you it's not going to rain today and you go to a baseball game and don't take an umbrella, you're probably going to get wet. I think we'll see tools for other general decision making for a farmer: equipment, land purchase, lease, improvement decisions. In season yield estimation is already something we're seeing. That's going to help the farmer locally, because it can help them to make decisions on inputs, right? It's like, okay, well, I know what my yield's going to be here, and can I afford this extra shot of water or not, right? Is it really going to make a difference? It's also going to help in an aggregated data sense across regional data for price and supply forecasting. Real quickly here, I know I'm running close to the end of my time. What's the university's role in all of this? So I think largely the mission of the land grant stays the same, and it should. It should not change. We should continue to educate, but I think we educate differently. Animal husbandry is a program that we had at Clemson years ago. I think probably most land grants anywhere had animal husbandry programs. Well, guess what? We don't have them anymore. Why don't we have them anymore? Well, the tractor replaced the mule. The tractor replaced beasts of burden on the farm. So animal husbandry largely has evolved to animal science, which is continuing to evolve today. So in the same token, precision agriculture was not a thing until about 30 years ago. And now we're starting to see precision agriculture undergrad programs. We have a minor at Clemson University in precision ag. We don't have a major program in it currently. I think in the way of outreach, we'll also see evolution as a function of ag tech development. One of those specific evolutions that I think we'll see ag tech or otherwise precision ag program teams, just like we have a livestock, row crop, horticulture, economics. We've got all these different program teams within extension. I think we're going to need to have ag tech program teams nationwide, not just in South Carolina, to be able to support the farmers in those specific needs. And then on the side of research, I don't think the university has a place in commercializing technologies, and I think more and more collaboration with industry will be important in any research efforts, whether it be our traditional crop research or whether it be development of new technologies. I think as we integrate with industry, we move faster to better answers. What are we doing at Clemson? Center for Ag Technology was approved in February of last year by the Board of Trustees. Shortly thereafter, 3 months after, the General Assembly provided funding support to kind of stand up the Center for Ag Technology. The foundation that we'll build upon is industry collaboration, and it touches on research, extension, and teaching. So it touches on all three pillars of the land grant itself. EATS that you see here in the top right is an industry collaborative that we're forming. We kick it off in July of this year. And intentionally within EATS, we're trying to create a place for industry networking opportunity, but also a place where industry can lead the research initiative that we support. So there's kind of a long story behind how that works, but it lets them have a voice in some of the research initiatives that get pursued here at Clemson and within CUCAT. And then finally, our Precision Ag program, which we've had for a while, we wrap it into CUCAT. That's kind of the extension arm of CUCAT, where the farmer-facing side, where we have actually, hopefully soon, we had interviews a couple weeks ago for a statewide precision ag specialist to perform that 100% extension role. It's my hope that we can work towards in 5 years having a team of agents underneath that individual, because frankly, one statewide specialist for that role is not enough to support our farmers with the growing number of ag technologies today. And there is a difference in precision ag and ag tech, but I'm over time, so I'm going to skip that. Industry collaboration, I'm not going to go into the details behind Nebraska tractor test, but basically it was developed to evaluate technology, and it was at a land grant. It was at University of Nebraska. We're looking at the same thing. We're looking at building a laboratory or a program where we can validate, we provide a third-party neutral and non-biased validation of crop and soil sensing technologies. And we're partnering with industry to be able to put this program together. Right now, it's a pilot phase. I don't know if it's something, if it's not something that the sensor companies, that industry wants, and not something that the farmers want, it has to be both of those, then it won't be successful. So we're trying to learn ways that we can make it be both of those, or otherwise learn whether or not it is both of those. Other things that we'll do and continue to do is fill niche markets that industry could build these tools, but what we see is sometimes they don't, maybe because it's just not a profitable tool for them to build. I think we can do a better job of building these tools if we partner with them to build them. So we're already starting to have those conversations. Currently, across our calculators that we offer, we've got about 100,000 page views annually. So they're being adopted. They're starting to be used. I won't say that South Carolina is the #1 user of them, but also we're also, you know, a smaller, agriculturally speaking, a smaller state. And then we'll develop other tools. The center pivot testing software is one that we've developed, and we're about to try to build a publicly available tool to do the same. I think those are the places where the university has a fit and where we can play a role. I think there's probably many more beyond what I've discussed here, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up with that so that I do leave some time for questions. I hope I haven't gone too far over, Kevin.
No, yeah, that was great. And really, we still got just a couple minutes here at the end. We were just building in a little time at the end in case people did have questions, which, as a reminder, if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask Kendall, you can go ahead and submit those through chat and we can kind of go through those. I just had a question about some of the technologies you mentioned earlier, like the drone and the See and Spray, probably not the nitricity, but are there some places in South Carolina where people can observe those, like through a field day or something, if they were kind of curious about more of that technology?
Yeah, there's two commercial operators that I'm aware of currently functioning for the spray drone itself. I'm not aware on See and Spray of whether or not we have those. If somebody here is aware of one that's in South Carolina, I'd be interested to learn where that is. But with the spray drones, we are looking at ways that we can partner with some of these commercial providers to have to bring them into some of the field days and some of the events that we do. We've got some agents already working with one of those providers to look at a spray efficacy trial. I believe they're doing it in corn. So we're starting to integrate. We're not sure what the university restrictions would be on us obtaining a 137. And frankly, I think this is a perfect example of a great opportunity to partner with industry to do research. If they already have the FAA 137 and we can cut through some red tape that the university would otherwise challenge us with, maybe, I think it gives us an opportunity to help them learn things that help themselves anyway. So.
And I guess maybe the next best bet for that would be like Sunbelt Ag Expo or something like that. They might be doing some exhibits for those kinds of things.
Sure, Sunbelt. And then I don't know if any of these folks have been to the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville. That's where a lot of companies, there's kind of, that's the East Coast show, I guess, where a lot of companies unveil technologies that they have. You're not going to see peanut technologies up there, for instance, because it's in Louisville. But you do see a lot of these kind of Midwest, and oftentimes that's where we see the technology show up first, is Midwest, because of the acreage over there. So I think that's a great place to go see the latest things that are on the ag market.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any other questions right off. I've been to a couple meetings where some of those calculators have been shown just for a few minutes. I don't know if there's one or a couple of those that you'd want to preview just real quickly, if that'd be possible.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to do that. In fact, if somebody wants to type in the one they want, I can just pull it up. I've got one open here that I was playing with the other day. Let me get my screen set back up.
Somebody mentioned the fertilizer calculator.
Okay, fertilizer blend calculator. We've got a couple different fertilizer calculators, and I'll see if this works. So I should be sharing a Firefox window now.
Yep.
This is actually a preview of one that's not available yet. This is behind password protection. I don't know. I don't remember if y'all might be able to access it with your Clemson password, but this one was set up, and it really only works well in Chrome for this tool that we have here. But basically, this one's set up for fertilizer cost comparisons, but then also the plan is, and these aren't added in as functional yet, but fungicide cost comparisons, insecticide, nematicide. So for instance, to look at a generic product versus kind of the name brand product. And then you've got, various units. If you're looking at different application rates of this one and that one, and this is a per jug cost, and this is a per tote cost, a tool like this can really help somebody narrow it down to a per acre basis. So I'll back out of here. Well, let's see. Maybe I won't. You can get to these if you just go to Clemson Precision Ag Calculators. Just Google it, or in my case, DuckDuckGo it. And it'll take you there. There's 16 of them live right now. I think there's several other in development. Our most popular one, I'll say, is this livestock feed ration calculator. This is one that we put together for, you can throw in up to 8 different feed ingredients, and it will show you what's the balance of that. So I will get to your fertilizer one, but real quick, And I'm not going to pick out any specific feed ingredients here. I'm just randomly scrolling and clicking. So this is not going to be a meaningful blend by any stretch of the imagination, or I doubt it will be. Let's throw some barley straw in there. So what this does is, based on the ratio of feed ingredients, it gives you the crude protein content of that mix. And then if you know, and obviously you can tweak the ratio of those feed ingredients as well to manipulate what the TDN, crude protein, crude fiber, all of that comes out of it. Also, if you've got a mixer, you can build a mix sheet, and you can say, I want to make a 2,000 pound batch of this ration. So you plug that in, and it's going to show you, okay, you need 1,500 pounds of this one, 250 of that, 250 of that. All that can be emailed to the user. And what we're slowly adding to these is user analytics. So in other words, we're collecting data anonymously collecting data and aggregating it on what the users give us here. So that'll give us the ability to provide insights, especially for economists, on any of these calculators that have price inputs with them. The one you asked about, Kevin, was the fertilizer blend calculator. It's got a built-in worksheet up top, this guided mode here. I'm not going to use the worksheet. I'll turn it on so you can see what's there. But the application worksheet is designed so that you've got like a total seasonal fertilizer requirement, say 60, 40, 60, or whatever it is. Right now, the calculator just deals in NP and K. We don't have micros or secondary nutrients built in yet, but that's on the to-do list. If you had that total seasonal requirement, you could then deduct for manure application. And we've got pre-fed. Brian Smith helped us with this. If you had broiler litter that was stockpiled litter, we've got kind of default values that could hold. And you could say, well, I'm going to put a ton per acre of that out. So therefore it says, okay, that's worth 23, 80, 34. So it'll deduct it from your total seasonal requirements. Same thing with coming in behind a legume. I'm going to turn that off so you can just kind of see the quick version of it. So let's say we needed a 60, 40, 60, I think was what I just said. You can go in here and select fertilizers that you want to build that with. And you can put in a custom blend too. You don't have to use the ones on this list. But I could put urea, and I have no idea what current price. I quit trying to follow fertilizer prices. I can't keep up. But you could take different products that you've got and that you know you got available locally. So MAP is a common one that might be available. And I'm going to just put, in the interest of time, $400 a ton on all of these, so you can get an idea of how it works anyway, even though that might not be a realistic number. Let's see. We had MAP. How about some MOP? Anybody got a fertilizer? You can type it in. I'll use it. So put $400 a ton there. And then I'm going to add a fourth. Let's see. I haven't run this one in a while. I'm trying to think of products that I know that we have typically available at some of our dealers nearby. And then do one more. So I've already got urea there. Let's just say ammonium nitrate. That's not a likely one that we would be using. Could be though. Anyway, you put them in, whatever your raw fertilizer ingredients are. You've got your target, right? And that target could or could not have been adjusted based on the worksheet that's above. And then you come down here and you click the button, show me the blends, and it gives you a ranked output of blends that can get the job done. And then it shows you the cost of doing each blend. So in this case, It's saying use what is that? It's using the urea and MKP and then the 0060 at some specific ratio to meet the applied or to meet the target with the applied rate. In fact, there's 4 blends here that get the job done, but what you see is they all do it at a different cost, $40 to $66 using my made up cost. And then next is one that it gets the job done, but it doesn't nail it, right? So it shows you here, we were 8.5 pounds over on nitrogen application. And you could select all here and it'll show you all of the blends that it calculated, again, sorted by cost. The feed ration optimizer largely works in the same way where it optimizes a feed ration based on, let's say, a crude protein target. Kevin, I don't know if that gives you a good example or kind of what one of these tools does. One that's relevant to farmers now and today, the center pivot fertigation calculator. If they're fertigating with center pivot, that's one that we're about to push on social media channels just to kind of bring it back to everybody's attention.
Yeah, no, that was great. And that I think you just shared your contact information and you're at the Edisto Rec, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of in Blackville, Kirk2 at Clemson.edu.
Okay. Yeah. So if anybody has any other further questions, just reach out to Kendall. But yeah, we do want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us today. And as a reminder for everyone, if you'd like a recording of this, it should be up on YouTube, probably even later today. So you can go back and review that if you'd like. But again, thanks for being on with us, Kendall, and share that information about the technology and the calculators and everything.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it. I'd like to, Kevin, put me on your mailing list. I'd like to hop on to some of these down the road. I didn't know you were doing it.
Yeah, sure. No problem. And as a reminder for other participants, so we are going to have to change the link for the South Carolina Ag Disruptors. We did not get it changed last month, but you will likely get an email soon of the link change. It should be fairly seamless. But it'll start to be a different link going forward. So we're working with some of our IT people to get that done. We do not have our topic set for June yet, but again, that'll be the 3rd Wednesday of June from 10 to 11 a.m. will be our next webinar. So again, we thank you for joining us today. Let us know if you have any other questions or comments related to the webinar, but otherwise we will plan to see you next month.
Thanks, Kevin. See y'all.
Thank you, Kendall.
Bye.
Thank you.